Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first major chess event of 2024. Welcome to the first Gotham recap of 2024. Of course, I am talking about Tata Steel. This is a tournament that happens every single January. It's actually been going on for, I believe, over 70 years. It's frequently referred to as the Wimbledon of chess. And the way Tata Steel works is there are two sections, the Masters section and the Challengers section. They both have 14 players, and it's a round robin, so there are 13 games. The winner of the Challenger section every year qualifies for the opportunity to participate in the Masters section the following year. Now, every single year, it's a mix of players from all over the world, different ages, different experience levels. But this year, for the first time in a long, long time, Magnus Carlsen is not playing. He declined the invitation for whatever reason. But also Fabiano Caruana and Hikaru Nakamura are not participating. That doesn't mean you should click on the next video you see in the sidebar, because it's still a massive mix of interesting characters, young players. We have Liren returning, right? Liren hasn't played since the World Chess Championship. We have Hans Niemann. Hans Niemann is the highest seed in the Challenger section. He has vowed to win it. He has vowed to qualify for the Masters the following year. We also have Ju and June, Women's World Champion, playing in the Masters section. So it's going to be one of the first times ever that we had the Women's World Champion and the Open World Champion playing. I mean, that's going to be very, very exciting stuff. And for today's recap, we're going to kick things off with a game that Hans Niemann played that, dear Lord, somebody has to stop this man. Also, before we get into that, I'd like to comment on something. I always get made fun of for two things. I always get made fun of for not being a grandmaster and my hair. In the next 3 to 5 years, I'll probably be bald. I can thank my dad for that. But I got a nice haircut. I decided to shut y'all up. And I went and I got a fresh cut. And now you can only make fun of me for one thing. And that one thing is that I'm not yet a grandmaster. That has not changed, unfortunately. But guess what? Neither are you. So, ha! All right. Hans Niemann playing against Liam Vrolik, whose last name I believe means like happy, that's a nice last name. This was a mauling, okay? Hans opened up with e4, and Liam played e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, the Italian. Liam plays knight to f6 and attacks the pawn in the center, and now white plays the move d3. It's also important to understand that, like, against bishop c5, you can play d3 as well. Against knight f6, you can go for fried liver, but at this level, they don't do that because there's a lot of theory. Both players have studied it a lot, and they know the best moves. So Hans plays pawn to d3. Liam develops the bishop to c5, Hans castles, and then plays c3, intending to play d4 at a later moment, maybe expand on the queen side here. Black castles as well. Now, again, there are many, many, many lines. This is a classical chess tournament. So as you can see, they get 100 minutes for their first 40 moves. So games could go for hours and hours. In fact, I'm recording this video as the game has entered its 7th hour of play. So it's going to end in a moment, but it is still pretty crazy that these games can go on for that long. Hans plays rook e1. Black plays a5. Again, we are taking divergences and different paths at every moment. We're not going to get into the intricacies of why the pawn is on a5 rather than on a6. Pawn's on a5 because it prevents white from expanding. I like that. We're not going to get into the intricacies of the pawn move, and then I'm going to tell you about the intricacies of the pawn move. Black also wants to reroute the bishop over here. And white wants to play b4, so black shuts that down. Hans plays h3. That move is self-explanatory. You don't want anything to go to the g4 square. You also maintain that in the future, you can potentially transfer your knight via h2. Common idea. Black plays bishop e6. The idea is to trade the powerful white bishop and open up the attack for the rook, which would be very dumb for white to do because he already moved his rook to the center to support the move d4 and support the pawn. So I don't know why you would do that, right? So that's why he goes here. He gets out of the way. Bishop takes. Now, here's an interesting thing about this position. I'm going to give you an interesting piece of information. Hans Niemann played this exact same game already once in his life. And he played it in a tournament called the United States Chess Championship. Okay, pretty big tournament, important tournaments, Championship of America. And he played against Fabiano Caruana. So Hans has had this on the board before. I'm willing to bet Liam knows that because that's how chess works, right? Liam plays bishop a7. Hans plays knight bd2. We are still following the game, Niemann, Caruana. And the interesting thing about that game is Caruana won. Caruana won. Caruana won. That's hilarious. Knight e7, transferring the knight out of the scope of the bishop, so now the bishop is rendered a little bit useless. We'll probably have to come around this way. Still following that game. Hans plays d4. Entire idea was to do that, right? He's trying to take the center. We're still following that game. Liam puts the knight on g6. He transfers the knight out of the danger zone and now is ready to attack white in the future. We're still following the game. We're still following the game. We're still following the game. I'm going to tell you when we're not following the game anymore. Knight f1. Knight to f4. It's exactly how Caruana played this position, putting the knight here. Now, judging by Liam's time, either he went to the toilet or he's just trying to remember the game. We are officially no longer following the game. So something happened here, all right? We've been following Niemann Caruana. Now, here's the thing. I guarantee you, Hans Niemann, after losing to Fabiano, went home and studied that game for hours. And it's not just about the game, it's about the decision-making. Pawn takes pawn has been played in about, 15, 20 GM games, all right? Maybe about 10. About 80% of them go knight takes d4. Putting the knight in the center, targeting the bishop, and that's how Hans played the first time against Fabiano. He lost that game. He didn't lose that game because he took with the knight. He lost that game because he lost that game. Now he takes with the pawn. This is a move that's been played only 2 times that I could find in the Masters database. And here's the amazing thing. One of those times was by Fabiano himself. So my man Fabiano has had that position that we just saw. This position, he's had it with black and with white. These top-level players are so flexible. They could play any position. Now, Liam plays d5. I think we've officially left Liam's preparation because he's actually thinking. All right? And now we're still in Hans's preparation. d5, and now Hans Niemann plays the first new move. The only games in the database here have gone pawn to e5, advancing in the center. Hans doesn't do that. Instead, he takes the knight. And he takes the knight without even thinking, which means this move is in his notes. And what he's trying to do now is quickly develop. You generally don't want to trade a knight for a bishop like this, but the idea is to quickly develop your pieces, connect your rooks, get the rook into the center of the board. Now Liam thinks and takes the pawn. He spends 13 minutes officially on his own, officially not stuck in the toilet. He takes. The rook takes in the center of the board, targeting the knight. The knight drops back. Hans plays a very natural move here, which is this bishop is not doing a thing, so let's trade it. And the idea is I want to trade the bishop, but continue to pressure you here. So you probably have to go here. And then at that point, I'll slide my queen. I'll bring my rook to the center. I have ugly pawns, but I can't say your pieces strike a big impression. But instead of that, Liam keeps the tension and he puts the bishop on d5. So he slides the bishop forward because it's defended like this. Hans takes and doubles his rooks. Relatively normal, and as you can see from time spend, still in his prep. Liam goes here, down 35 minutes on the clock. And I believe Hans... Yes, this is the first move that he made out of his prep. So basically, Hans plays 21 moves of prep, which he memorized, and now he needs to remember the ideas of the position. The ideas of the position are to clearly make your opponent uncomfortable by targeting the knight in front of his king, because the knight actually can't go anywhere. So f6, h5, the knight would need to go to the h8 square, which is disgusting. I guess it could go to e5, but then you would probably lose this knight or pawn in the future. Not right away, though. Liam plays f5. When you are under severe pressure, you frequently try to solve things in a concrete manner. You frequently try to play in a concrete way to make your opponent think, right? And he does, and Hans puts his knight in the center, maintaining a 35-minute time advantage, but this is going to come back to haunt Liam. Apparently, what Liam should have done in this position is caged the knight. He should have not let the knight back into the game. He should have grabbed this pawn and, like a roller coaster, held on for dear life. The computer now gives queen c2, c5 defending. White can apply pressure, but black can actually fend this off and probably survive. But this move, f4, is an overextension because it allows Hans to put the knight in the center. And I just told you, right? Take the pawn, but leave the pawn on f5. This is a major difference because the white knight re-enters the game and has an opportunity to go there. Hans plays queen c2, and now black is under severe pressure. Black is now down over 40 minutes on the clock. He plays h6. He is now down 1 hour on the clock. And the reason he did play h6 is to prevent the knight from going to g5. Had he defended his pawn, Hans would have went here, and this is a lot of headaches for black. A lot of headaches. And by the way, that knight wouldn't have gotten there if you kept your pawn on f5. Because Liam overextended because he was under pressure for so long, he now suddenly has to deal with this knight, and he's under too much pressure now. His position is disintegrating. White has tactics all over the board because black kind of tied his shoes together. Rook d7 played with 11 minutes on the clock. Technically, the position is still holdable, but he goes queen c6, and he simply blunders. Take, rook d2. Bishop can't move because the rook is hanging. You can't even defend the bishop because you take the pawn. Can't take. Bishop hangs, game over. What a game. Hans Niemann plays 21 moves of his prep that he learned from his game against Fabiano Caruana. And black, he defended. To his credit, he defended, but that's life, man. That's life. You play 22 perfect moves, and chess is sometimes a minefield like this. You allow one knight to just re-enter the game, and suddenly that knight is causing you massive headaches. It's a bit of the beginner takeaway here, actually, really, and the intermediate takeaway is sometimes a pawn does a better job controlling a knight than attacking it. The pawn attacking the knight can zigzag out of the way. I'm not teaching Liam. There's a reason I'm here and he's playing. I'm teaching all of you. Sometimes it's better to control a piece rather than threaten it, because a lot of you are guilty of this. Hans wins a game, a perfect game, because he played 21 moves of prep. His opponent made an inaccuracy, and Hans just swiftly punished him, and his opponent blundered into this and resigns because there's no way to defend your position. I feel like when Hans beats people, he takes their soul. Like, some people win long, boring rook end games. When Hans Niemann beats you, he takes your soul. Like, that's what he does. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Now, I got other games for you today, all right? This is a game from the Masters section. And this game was, they called the police to the playing hall after this game was done. Okay? So, Jan Nepomniachtchi, Max Warmerdam, d4, knight f6, Jan playing typical normal thing here. And this position is a two knights with d4 and c4. Generally, you'll see a Rogozin, like a queen's gambit declined. You could see a knight bd7. It's a sideline. There's a line here that kills the game, which is this. It's what all the top players are playing against each other nowadays, and then they each mirror image take these pawns. But Nepomniachtchi is trying to beat Max Warmerdam. He's 150 points higher rated than he is. Okay, 144, but I'm rounding up. So he takes on c4, and after this move, which seizes the center and then tries to take the pawn back, he plays this very provocative move, pawn to b5. The point is that if white ever takes, black will take here. And actually, black does not mind losing the pawn completely and simply hanging on to this one. This is well known. This has been played. I've played this with black it's been popular for some time. So white goes here. Black develops his other knight. They both develop their pieces. This knight comes out of the way to control more of the center because the knight was going to get kicked out anyway. It was also going to be a target, right? And black basically says, look, I have this stupid looking pawn that you can try to go win, but I'm going to win control of the center, and I'm going to have a very powerful bishop. White plays a3, both guys still in prep, as you can see from their time management. White plays this queen c2 move. Nepo plays queen d7. White plays rook d1. Clearly, his first move on his own, plays rook d1, and, black, again, like I said, black has a slightly bad pawn structure, but when you're 150 points higher rated than your opponent and you're playing black, you can't win games without taking risk. So he plays it like this, and now Nepo plays this very interesting move, f5. I have a feeling, by the way, that Jan is still using ideas from his World Championship match. Both of them. You gotta remember, when you prepare for a World Championship against Magnus or Ding Liren, there's a lot of ideas you don't get to use. And so this could be one of them, where, he's potentially creating problems for his opponent. Like, if white castles, black could play g5. I'm not saying right now, but I am saying that, there's gonna be positions where, you could do stuff like this. Again, not right now, but that's kind of the point. That is what you were trying to do. Max takes on f6, right? Jan, you see? Look at what Jan's doing. Jan is sacrificing a little bit of king safety to try to target white's position. White's got no choice. He's probably going to have to castle. But he plays knight e4, hesitating. Now black plays queen a4. So the second the knight left, right? The second the knight leaves the control of the queen side, Jan says, let's trade the queens. Because when we trade the queens, I'm going to bully your pawns over here. Tough position. Very tough. Ramadan plays queen b1. Jan castles long. King is out of the center. And now I am ready to bulldoze with my bishop. The computer thinks it's equal, but practically speaking, it's a very difficult position to play with white. He plays knight c5. He's still hesitating. He's trying to clarify the position a little bit. before he castles. He finally castles. Wow. Now, you will never in a million years be able to explain to me why Jan moved that rook and not the other one. Like, this looks so ugly, but I kind of think Jan did not find a good response to queen takes pawn. Like, that's a free pawn. Now, you might say, well, what about rook h8? Yeah, but you're going to lose other pawns in the process. Like, you could do this, but at the end of the day, I mean, I'm going to strip you of your pieces. And then you can say, but I have my rooks pointing at your king. And I would say, no, that doesn't matter. In chess, you can't just describe things in words. Oh, my rooks are pointing at the king. Okay, make a move. Okay, do something about it. You can't, because you got nothing. So that's why Jan plays this, right? He puts this rook here, and maybe he's going to double up like that. Now, it's a very difficult position. And Max plays g3, and he spends 12 minutes on the move, and it's not an easy position. White's best move is queen e4, potentially, and then sending this queen back, and then going back to c2. No human being plays chess like that. Like, you can't. Feels like you're not making any progress, and black just got another piece into the attack. Very, very difficult position. It also says rook d4 for reasons I can't explain. So I can't explain that move to you. So he goes g3. He kind of acknowledges the pressure, and Jan immediately plays h5. He doesn't need to spend any time. Here come the cannons. It's still equal. It's still equal. He plays rook d4, which is the best move, but he's down 30 minutes on the clock. Jan brings the queen back, and yeah, I think you can see where this game might be headed. Rook h4, stopping the attack. Yeah, Jan gets rid of the bishop and plants his rook here and says, all right, Max, it's been fun. I had a really fun time playing with you here in the first round of Tata Steel, but you're in trouble. Queen c1, and now black's entire plan is revealed. Max spends 20 minutes on this move. Let me tell y'all, he could have spent 39 minutes on this move. It is not an easy position. Rook g4 is disgusting, because the point is, obviously, you got to move your knight, and then you're going to get destroyed. But what's worse about rook g4 is, I'm not asking you to take. That's not what I don't care if you take or not, because I'm taking you. You can't take with the knight. You take with the knight. This is not mate, but I got news for you. This will be very soon. So you got to take when you got to do this, you know it's bad. Jan's knight finally gets activated, just grabs the pawn on the way out. He's just up a pawn, but the advantage is like -3, and it's real bad because queen e4, this is coming in. Like, you're getting mated, dude. Rook g1, and he just goes rook d8. And the idea of rook d8 is, I don't want to mate you anymore. I'm good. You know what the idea is? Let's say, like, h3. This falls. This gets into d2, rook d2, for example. Not right away. You don't want to blunder your own king, but this is the general idea. Rook d2, you can't take because of the pin. This falls, game over. Jan Nepomniachtchi just wins a beautiful game with black. Gorgeous game. And I think it's because of his prep. It's because of his prep. I think, you know, it's not like Hans won because he pressured his opponent out of preparation for 20 moves. Same with Nepo. Nepo got a position that was really interesting, really complex, dynamic, perfect for his style. And he just melted his opponent. It wasn't even close. Now, the return of Liren with the black pieces, his first classical chess game in like 9 months. All right, so he's playing black. I mean, you can't expect a whole lot. By the way, he's playing against Vidit Gujarati, who is a candidate. Like, this is a potential preview of the World Championship match. If Vidit wins it, it wins the candidates, right? Vidit is a dark horse in the candidates with guys like Fabiano and Nepo, but all right, Vidit plays knight c3. Wow, he's allowing a Nimso Indian. Generally nowadays, these guys are not allowing Nimso Indians. I mean, I literally just showed you a game where after these two moves, guys are not allowing a Nimso Indian. No, Vidit says, let's go, and he plays a very complex line, f3. Trying to play e4, maybe testing Ding's prep a little bit. d5, a3, the bishop goes back. Generally, the bishop is taking, but Ding says, bring it on, Vidit. Take as much center space as you want. Strikes right back at the center with c5. You'll actually notice, you know, Ding's prep here, 6 minutes spent. 6 minutes. So I think he was going in the memory bank a little bit, deciding which one he wants to go for. And he plays this one. Now, as far as I know, I thought the main line here was e5. I really like this move with black, but it's not the best move, I think, according to theory. You try to trade the queens and drive in here with the knight. White gets a big center. White gets a big center regardless. So Ding gives him the big center and now plays a6, h6. He's preparing b5, and he's stopping anything from going to the g5 square. Vidit develops some pieces, trying to trade castles. Very, very tense position. But to be honest, I like it more for white. White has a passed pawn that Ding has to blockade constantly. And Ding has to rely on piece trades to catch up in development because, frankly, he can't move his knight. So Vidit goes here, and just optically, white looks better. But white is down 20 minutes on the clock. Ding trades, and then Ding brings his knight out, all right? And now knight d2. And this was the biggest advantage that Vidit had in the game, by the way, thus far. It's a great looking position. Now black can rely on like these angle queen trades, but Ding goes here, and I mean, Vidit just look at the dominance of white's pieces. The knight is going to go to e4. Ding is still trying to make exchanges, but another pawn is going to leave here. And I mean, I think Vidit's got to go for this, right? Like to split the pawn further away. This is a passer. The endgame is going to be a problem. Like, what's stopping him from taking and just bringing his rook? I'm not saying chess is that easy, but sometimes it might be. You know, like I really wonder why he didn't take on g6. Instead, he played knight e4, and now he allowed Ding to trade like this, and he's still building his pressure. Now Ding plays b5, finally, challenging the integrity of the white position, right? Threatening the pawn in the center. Vidit takes. He takes on f6, and he grabs the pawn, and now he does have free reign, but a nice defensive move by Ding, asking some questions here. White defends himself. But the idea of queen to b8 was to pressure the knight and also defend e5 for the fork. Queen f4, we go to an endgame. 4 pawns each. Yeah, white does have a better structure, but he's never going to be able to use this to its full potential because he can't move the pawn or the knight, and you know, maybe white can play this for a win. He tries to trade the rooks, and now he's going to try to bring his king. I think the advantage here is like microscopically in white's favor. But you're too fast. Like rook c4, knight b6. You know, you play like rook a4. You probably don't want to go to a knight endgame, but it's still a draw. Even if you go to a knight, it's still a draw. So rook c6. Vidit applies a little bit of pressure, but Ding Liren, creative, crafty, and this is just a drawn endgame. White has a passed pawn, but black is a little bit too active. King d5, king here. Nobody can make progress. You can even back up because you can't do this. The only way that you would lose this endgame with black is, let's say you pushed all your pawns forward. You know, like h5, and then for whatever reason, you somehow allowed white's king in, like that. And even this is a draw because you can quickly trade the pawns. So they draw. Relatively uneventful game. Good defensive resourcefulness by Ding. Interesting to see him back. We got 12 more rounds of Ding Liren to go, so you can't draw too many conclusions from this game. But you can draw conclusions from this game. This is one of the most crazy games I've ever seen. This is the one that we will end on. Salem Salah from the UAE, Arabic Falcon. He probably has the coolest nickname in all of chess. If Salem Salah was a fighter, can you imagine them announcing him? Salem, the Arabic Falcon, Saleh! Like, oh my, what a gangster. What a name. He's been over 2,700, and by the way, his chess.com username is literally Arabic Falcon. Like, I'm not giving him that name. And his opponent, Anton Korbov, also very dynamic, interesting player. These guys are in the challengers section to show you the level of the tournament. We have a Najdorf, perfect. We have two of the most dynamic and exciting 2,600, 2,700 players in the world, and they're playing the most complex and combative opening. They rattle off a little bit of theory early on. f3, black castles, Salem plays h4, and Salem does not wait to boogie. He sacrifices his bishop. Sacrifices the bishop for 2 pawns and a rook. So white gets a rook and 2 pawns, black gets a knight and a bishop. Traditional wisdom tells you the knight and the bishop are better, even though the rook and 2 pawns are an extra point. But what's really important about this, it's not really about the pawns in quantity. It's about the pawns in quality, okay? White has very high quality and coordinated pawns. Black's pawns don't do much. So black is going to have to rely on the maneuvering of the pieces, and the only two pawns that matter, which are those, which are going to attack white. King b1, always a useful move to defend all your queenside pawns. And listen, my man Karabov is trying to utilize those pawns, but Salem is dancing around him with his pieces. Who likes a queen trade here? Probably white, because then he will never get mated, and he will use his rooks. Like, at the end of the day, the rooks matter in the endgame. And they're gonna matter, because you're gonna start taking things and trading, right? Black plays a4, look at Salem, b3, a well-timed counter-strike on the side of the board. He's getting attacked. Takes with the c-pawn. They say you're supposed to take toward the center, but not if it means getting checkmated, all right? In chess, we have superseding concepts. Take toward the center, not if it hangs mate. Takes away from the center because his queen now defends his king a little bit more. Queen f7, knight f5. I told you it's about the quality of the pawns. Look at black's pawns. Black doesn't have a lot of pawns, and they're very, very, very stuck. Knight e8. Now black doesn't even have a or b pawn at all. He's down 3 pawns. Rook and 3 versus knight and bishop. Rook and 3 are going to get the job done. Queen d4. Knight c5, but black still has to be a little careful, but here comes white. He's using his pawns, and those pawns are just of a higher quality. Knight takes b3 looks like you're going to checkmate. For example, g4, knight takes. There's no mate. It looks nice. There's no mate. It looks nice. It looks really nice. There's no mate. I promise you, it looks like you're getting mated. I can defend myself. In chess, if you have 2 more attacking pieces than they have defenders, you might mate them. I got like 4 defensive pieces. I got 4 defense. It's just not going to work. So g4, and now Salem turns everything around. Salem starts attacking in this. He has a crazy threat here. His threat is knight h6. You thought you were attacking me? If you take, it's mate in the corner. If you go here, I take your queen with check. You can't even take mine. Crazy. Bishop b2. Look at this position. Rook d2 defending himself at all times. Rook c1. Complex game. White down a lot on time. Karabov doing a nice job here with a comeback, bringing all his pieces. Knight e7. Creative move. Can't take as a mate. Knight goes to d5. Very complicated. Look at Karabov. Karabov finally using those pieces. Queen b4. Strips white of the bishop. Now the bishop won't be used as an attacking mechanism. The king gets out of the way. But rook c2, defending the king. Poking, prodding. White still creating an attack. Queen f7, rotating with the knight. I told you at a certain point, the pieces are going to disappear for black. Now Salem is fighting with the pawns in front of his own king. The knight goes to the center. a3, the king is still defended, and Karabov makes he takes the knight, but the quality of the pieces is not the same. The knight has no way back into the game. Black was strong in numbers, but he doesn't have the numbers anymore. Knight c7, and the bishop is not impressing anybody either. Queen b3, and Salem is just moving forward. Now only one man is attacking. g6, sealing the tomb shut for the black king. Black tries to get a fork, but white gets a fork right back, winning the rook in the corner. Rook f7 swarming in. White is a move away from getting mated. But queen takes knight. h6, and Salem has to end this game like the Arabic falcon would. He sacrifices the rook, plays pawn takes d5. He's now up 3 pawns, but he ends the game in style. In this position, black starts to take his pawns, and Salem ends the game and ends the Gotham recap by sacrificing his queen for a checkmate. And that is a brutal move, because it's not optional. It's not optional. If you take the queen, I mate you. If you defend the queen, I take the queen, and then I mate you anyway. And if you play rook g8, and you say, no, I'm I sack the queen. You got no choice. You gotta take me. You gotta take me in rook c8. What a move. Queen c8 is such a... Imagine playing that. Take the queen, slide the queen forward, press the clock. Your opponent's like, I resign. Good game. What a win for Salem Salah. Great win in the challenger section. The standings don't matter a whole lot, but I'll show them to you anyway. These are your standings. As we are recording this recap, Anish Giri will be defeating Zhu Wenjun. See that on the left side? They both have 0 points. Their game actually hasn't ended. It's a rook end game, but he's winning it at 7 hours, and I got to leave the house. I got things to do. It's like afternoon here, and I've been sitting all day waiting for them to play, but that's what happens in classical tournaments sometimes. Incredible win for Hans Niemann. Great start. Salem Salah cooking. We got great players on all sides. Interesting players in their teens, 20s, 30s. Anybody older in this event? I'm trying to think. Any 40-year-olds? I think Erwin Lamy might be in his 40s. If he's not, then I apologize. But we got many generations of players here. Very exciting event. No Magnus, no Fabi, no Hikaru. Don't matter. Tune in again. Recap's coming for 2 weeks. This tournament will last. Get out of here.